What I'd like to talk about this week for my blog post is something that recently has been under much debate, and that is the way that our government, more specifically the Obama administration, is spending money. As we know, Congress, they passed a $700 billion stimulus package with the idea that it's going to save America from a Great Depression, and that it will basically create a wall of liquidity for people hoping to liquefy their assets or come up with money to maintain their day-to-day operations or their day-to-day business. Well, on the flip side, America has a huge problem with the amount of money that we spend. We spend way more money as a percentage of GDP than any other nation. I'm not going to say way more money than any other nation, but we are by far the biggest spenders in the world. And there's a difference between a debt and a deficit. A debt is a lot of little deficits that have added up. It's the accumulation of deficits are what equal a debt. Now, we're facing deficits right now. We're buying more than we're making. Okay, that makes sense. We've done that for a while. However, the problem is because we've done that for a while, that has built an huge amount of debt for Americans to pay off. And it's beginning to raise the question of when do we need to start paying these debts off? We are in debt to nations around the world. China is a big buyer of our debt, and they buy it in the form of bonds and treasury auctions and stuff like that. And what that does is they buy it and allows us to basically spend the money now, and we'll repay them later. So with that concern of America's debt, there's been a recent discussion, debate, argument, whatever you want to call it, on the spending practices of the government now. And the problem is that we are basically picking the lesser of two evils in this case, in that we are spending a lot of money now and we're basically borrowing from our future in hopes that we can prevent something much worse now, which would ultimately be a depression. And I think the reason other countries are okay with this is, one, America is by far the biggest economy in the world, and we drive the global economy as a whole. That's one reason. Two, everything is based on the dollar. The dollar is the reserve currency of the world. So when the dollar falls in value, that affects everybody, and that's ultimately not seen as a good thing. Lastly, we have a situation where we don't know how we're going to repay this debt. The things that are happening now are things that we can't necessarily foresee an end to. This is not a temporary problem. We have a fundamental problem that needs to be fixed. Now, that alone raises all sorts of discussion. However, that is perhaps what is so intriguing to me, is that we've reached a point where globally we've all realized that something needs to change. And America is most likely going to be, as we saw with the $700 billion stimulus package, America is most likely to be the country that creates and innovates first. Now, seeing as how this is a course on creativity and innovation, I felt this is something that I wanted to talk about. I think that really plays a major role in our government right now. Creativity and innovation is going to be a driving source of change over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months, or even the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Something is going to come along and change the system. Not because they want to, not because people are asking them to or there's political pressure, but because it is needed. And right now, the U.S. is on an unsustainable path towards economic prosperity. So, what is going to be that change? What is it that's going to really shift the way America thinks? Well, it could be monetary policy, which would be the Federal Reserve and the way they loosen and tighten interest rates, which allow people to borrow and spend money. Although that's kind of what got us in this problem to begin with. We had Alan Greenspan, who just kind of, he had a philosophy where we said, you know what, let's just make the money available and people will spend it and they'll make money off of it and they'll pay us back, no problem. You know, obviously we might lose some money because, you know, there might not be good investments all over the place, but ultimately it's a good thing. Let's keep the money available. Well, I don't know if monetary policy is going to be the driving force of change or the driving force of innovation in the next couple of years. So maybe it's fiscal policy, which fiscal policy would be the way in which the government spends the money. So how is the Obama administration, how are they spending this $700 billion? How are they circulating it through the economy with hopes to generate more money? That's fiscal policy, and I think that will definitely touch on creation and innovation in the next couple of years. We've already seen it in recent programs. Cash for Clunkers, it's a current program, and basically what it does is it allows people to turn in their old, lousy clunkers, their vehicles that get horrible fuel economy, and basically it gives them a credit when they buy a new car, and it makes that new car more affordable if they can't afford it. That is a creative technique that I think is good. Ultimately, that's good for America. However, that's not going to be enough. What is something that is sustainable and will allow us to become better spenders in the long run? And I would argue, and like the current government or the current administration, the Obama administration, I think that thing is really going to be green energy. And I think if we can develop ways or innovate ways to make green energy more affordable, more accessible, and increase the technology so that it becomes more efficient also, if we can do these things, then I think America has a true shot of digging themselves out of this predicament, this debt situation that we face. And the problem is, if we don't, the losers are going to be way more than the American people or the American country as a whole. If America doesn't succeed in this, it could be argued that the world won't succeed, and that is because so much is dependent upon America. So with that said, I think it's really interesting just to make note of the fact that our government is built in such a way that it allows for creativity and innovation in policy making. And I think you know, a lot of other companies or countries, they don't like us for that, but you know, there's also a lot of countries who do, and you know, we're willing to take risks as a nation, and I think that is something that is just awesome. And when it comes back to creativity and innovation, I think that's a major role in our society.